April 29, 1945. In the frigid waters off northern Norway, Convoy RA-66 was making its final run from Murmansk to Scotland. The war in Europe had less than 10 days remaining, but beneath the Arctic waves, the most brutal submarine hunt in naval history was about to unfold. At the center of this maelstrom was U-427, a German Type VIIC U-boat commanded by Oberleutnant Carl-Gabriel Graf von Gudenus, an Austrian nobleman who would earn his place in maritime legend not for the ships he sank, but for the impossible punishment his submarine endured. The Type VIIC U-boat represented the backbone of the German submarine fleet, with 703 units constructed between 1940 and 1945. U-427 displaced 769 tons surfaced and 871 tons submerged, measuring 220 feet 2 inches in overall length, with a pressure hull length of 165 feet 8 inches. Her beam of 20 feet 4 inches and height of 31 feet 6 inches housed a complement of 53 officers and men in cramped conditions that tested human endurance. Powered by two Germania-Werft F-46 four-stroke, six-cylinder supercharged diesel engines producing 3,200 metric horsepower for surface operations, U-427 could achieve 17.7 knots on the surface. Submerged, two Siemens Schuckert electric motors generating 750 metric horsepower provided 7.6 knots underwater speed. Her operational range was 8,500 nautical miles at 10 knots surfaced, but only 80 nautical miles at 4 knots when submerged. Armed with 5 53.3-centimeter torpedo tubes, 4 forward and 1 aft, U-427 carried 14 torpedoes, an 88mm deck gun with 220 rounds, a 37mm flak gun, and twin 20mm anti-aircraft guns. Her pressure hull was designed to withstand depths of 230 meters, though experienced commanders knew their boats could survive much deeper in emergencies. Oberleutnant Carl-Gabriel Graf von Gudenus was an unlikely submarine commander. Born into Austrian nobility, the 24-year-old officer had joined the Kriegsmarine in 1940 and earned his U-boat qualification in 1942. Intelligent and methodical, Graf von Gudenus possessed the calm temperament essential for underwater warfare. His aristocratic bearing masked a steely determination and an intuitive understanding of submarine tactics that would prove crucial in the trials ahead. U-427's crew was typical of late-war German submarines, a mixture of experienced petty officers and young recruits barely out of training. Obermaschinistenmat Heinrich Müller, the chief engineer from Hamburg, had served on U-boats since 1941 and understood every pipe, valve, and system aboard. Oberbootsmat Klaus Weber, the senior torpedo man from Bavaria, could load and fire torpedoes in complete darkness. Matrose Erich Hansen, 19 years old from Schleswig-Holstein, operated the hydrophones with an almost supernatural ability to identify distant ships by their engine signatures. The submarine had been commissioned on June 2, 1943, at Danziger Werft in Danzig, but ironically, U-427 had never successfully sunk an enemy vessel. From her first war patrol on June 20, 1944, through 5 separate missions, she had fired torpedoes at only 2 targets. Both missed. This record of failure masked a far more valuable trait, an almost supernatural ability to survive under impossible circumstances. By April 1945, the Battle of the Atlantic was effectively over. Allied escort techniques had evolved to devastating efficiency, with hunter-killer groups using coordinated sonar, radar, and aircraft to systematically destroy German submarines. The convoy routes to Murmansk had become graveyards for U-boats, where inexperienced crews met their end against veteran Allied escorts. Convoy RA-66 consisted of 24 merchant vessels carrying vital war supplies from the Soviet Union back to Britain. The escort force was formidable. The Royal Navy's 19th Escort Group, with frigates HMS Goodall, HMS Conn, HMS Cotton, and HMS Redwood, plus the Canadian Tribal-class destroyers HMCS Haida and HMCS Iroquois, battle-hardened veterans with over 18 months of North Atlantic combat experience. HMCS Haida and HMCS Iroquois were among the most formidable destroyers afloat. displacing 2,645 tons and measuring 377 feet overall. These Tribal-class ships carried 8 4.7-inch guns, 4 2-pounder pom-poms, and multiple 20mm Oerlikon guns. Their crews were veterans of countless convoy battles, equipped with the latest radar and sonar systems, and trained in advanced anti-submarine tactics. On April 29, 1945, as Convoy RA-66 departed Kola Inlet near Murmansk, Graf von Gudenus positioned U-427 along the expected route. Intelligence had provided approximate convoy timing, and the Graf intended to achieve what had eluded him throughout the war: a successful torpedo attack. At 1100 hours, the submarine's hydrophones detected the distant rumble of multiple ship engines approaching from the northeast. "Alarm! Diving stations!" Graf von Gudenus ordered. U-427 slipped beneath the Arctic waves to periscope depth, her electric motors humming quietly as the crew took action stations. Through the periscope, the Graf observed a magnificent target: 2 large destroyers providing close escort to the convoy's starboard flank. The destroyers were HMCS Haida and HMCS Iroquois, steaming at 18 knots in a standard anti-submarine patrol pattern. Graf von Gudenus calculated firing solutions for both vessels, planning to fire a spread of 4 torpedoes, 2 at each destroyer. At 11:47 hours, he gave the order that would seal U-427's fate. Tubes 1 and 2, fire. Tubes 3 and 4, fire. 4 G7E electric torpedoes raced through the water at 30 knots, their batteries driving them silently toward the Canadian destroyers. But the torpedo spread was poorly calculated. All 4 weapons passed harmlessly between the 2 ships, their wakes clearly visible to alert lookouts aboard both destroyers. "Submarine! Bearing green 45! Emergency, turn to port!" HMCS Iroquois' captain, Commander William Landymore, immediately ordered maximum speed and a hard turn toward the submarine's position. HMCS Haida, commanded by Commander Harry de Wolf, coordinated the attack while directing the convoy to emergency scatter procedures. Graf von Gudenus realized instantly that his attack had failed catastrophically. "Emergency dive, full ahead both, take her down to 150 meters." The submarine plunged toward the safety of the deep, but the Canadians had achieved perfect sonar contact. The first depth charges exploded around U-427 at 11:58 hours. HMCS Iroquois dropped a standard 10-charge pattern set for 150 and 200 meters depth. The underwater explosions created massive pressure waves that hammered the submarine's hull with tremendous force. Light bulbs shattered, cork insulation rained down, and the crew was thrown violently against bulkheads. "Damage report," Graf von Gudenus called through the intercom system. The reports came back: minor leaks in the forward torpedo room, electrical failures throughout the boat, but the pressure hull remained intact. U-427 was hurt, but not critically damaged. But this was only the beginning. For the next 18 hours, HMCS Haida and HMCS Iroquois maintained continuous sonar contact, methodically dropping depth charge patterns every few minutes. The Canadian destroyers employed the most advanced anti-submarine tactics available, using coordinated attacks that prevented U-427 from surfacing or escaping to deeper water. The depth charges came in relentless waves. Each pattern consisted of 10 to 14 charges set to explode at different depths to create overlapping zones of destruction. The 300-pound TNT charges created pressure waves capable of crushing a submarine's hull if detonated within 50 feet. At greater distances, they caused cumulative damage: split pipes, loosened hull plates, electrical failures, and psychological stress that could drive crews to panic. By midnight on April 29th, over 200 depth charges had exploded around U-427. The submarine was taking water through multiple small leaks, her batteries were partially flooded, and the air was becoming toxic from chlorine gas generated by seawater mixing with battery acid. Several crew members showed signs of severe concussion from the constant explosions. Graf von Gudenus demonstrated remarkable leadership during the ordeal. Moving quietly through the submarine, he reassured his men while assessing damage and coordinating repairs. His calm demeanor prevented panic, while his tactical decisions kept U-427 alive through the longest depth-charge attack in naval history. "Maintain silent running," he whispered to his crew. "No unnecessary movement. Breathe slowly to conserve oxygen. We will survive this." Chief Engineer Muller worked miracles keeping the boat operational. With hand pumps and emergency repairs, his damage control teams sealed leaks, rerouted electrical systems, and maintained life support. The submarine's robust German engineering proved its worth as system after system absorbed punishment that would have destroyed lesser vessels. The hydrophone operator, Matros Hansen, provided crucial intelligence by tracking the destroyer's movements and predicting incoming depth-charge attacks. His whispered warnings allowed the crew to brace for impact, reducing injuries from the violent explosions. As dawn broke on April 30th, the attack continued with undiminished intensity. The Canadians had been joined by additional escort vessels, creating a coordinated hunting group that maintained constant pressure on the trapped submarine. By now, over 400 depth charges had exploded around U-427, yet the boat remained operational. The psychological toll was becoming severe. Several crew members were showing signs of battle fatigue, while others suffered from chlorine poisoning and concussion symptoms. The submarine's air supply was becoming critical, with carbon dioxide levels approaching dangerous concentrations. Graf von Gudenus made the decision that saved his boat and crew. Instead of attempting to surface and fight or trying to escape to deeper water, he ordered U-427 to lie motionless on the sea floor at 180 meters depth. The submarine settled onto the muddy bottom, her electric motors silent, while the crew waited in absolute quiet. This tactic confused the Allied sonar operators, who lost clear contact with the stationary submarine. Depth charges continued to fall, but with less accuracy as the hunters struggled to pinpoint their target's exact position. The attacks became more sporadic, though no less dangerous. For 6 hours, U-427 lay on the bottom, while depth charges exploded around her. The crew breathed through emergency air supplies and communicated only in whispers. Every man understood that a single careless noise could reveal their position and bring instant death. At 14:30 hours on April 30th, sonar contact was lost entirely. The escort vessels had been ordered to rejoin the convoy, which needed protection during the final approach to Scottish waters. The depth charging ceased, leaving an eerie silence that was almost more terrifying than the explosions. Graf von Gudenus waited another 2 hours before ordering the submarine to surface. U-427 rose slowly from the depths, her ballast tanks bleeding air as she climbed toward the surface. At periscope depth, the Graf cautiously observed the surrounding waters, empty except for drifting debris and oil slicks marking the battle site. The submarine finally surfaced at 16:47 hours on April 30th, 1945. Her crew stumbled onto the deck, gasping fresh air after 31 hours of underwater hell. U-427 was battered but afloat, her pressure hull intact despite absorbing punishment that should have destroyed her completely. The final tally was unprecedented. 678 depth charges had exploded around U-427 during the longest continuous depth charge attack in naval history. No other submarine, German or Allied, had survived anything approaching this level of sustained bombardment. The boat's survival was a testament to German engineering, crew training, and Graf von Gudenus's exceptional leadership. U-427 limped back to her base at Kilbotn, Norway, arriving on May 2, 1945, just 6 days before Germany's surrender. The submarine was severely damaged, her hull plates were split, her electrical systems were destroyed, and her crew was exhausted beyond measure. But she had survived the impossible. Ironically, this greatest survival story in submarine warfare was also a tale of complete tactical failure. U-427 had attempted to sink 2 destroyers and achieved nothing except her own near destruction. Her war record remained unmarked by any successful attacks, making her unique among German submarines. The crew of U-427 became legends within the U-boat service. Stories of their survival spread throughout the remaining submarine bases, inspiring other crews facing hopeless odds in the war's final days. Graf von Gudenus was recommended for the Knight's Cross, though the war ended before the award could be processed. On May 9, 1945, U-427 surrendered at Narvik, Norway, as part of the general German capitulation. She was transferred to Loch Eriboll, Scotland, and later to Loch Ryan as part of Operation Deadlight. On December 21, 1945, U-427 was towed into deep water northwest of Ireland and sunk by the Royal Navy, ending the career of the submarine that survived the unsurvivable. The 678 depth charges that failed to destroy U-427 represented more than just numbers. They embodied the final fury of a war grinding toward its conclusion. In those 31 hours beneath the Arctic waters, Graf von Gudenus and his crew demonstrated that human courage and determination could overcome even the most impossible odds. Their story stands as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit under extreme duress. Sometimes survival isn't about victory. It's about enduring when endurance seems impossible, and emerging intact from trials that should have destroyed everything. U-427 and her crew achieved the greatest submarine survival story in naval history, proving that sometimes the most meaningful battles are not the ones you win, but the ones you simply survive.